What's good, everybody? What's going on, man? It's Stephen Qualls II, aka Mr. Qualified. It's your boy, and we are back with another episode of the Wright Quality Podcast. Friends, co-hosts, please remind the people of who you are.
Ashley Wright the first. That
Okay.
was it. You know.
Does the blur make my head look small?
Actually, I didn't trip off of it, but when you said my head looks tiny from back here, it did look like you could do like that.
All right, we're all dealing with the glare. For those that are listening on Spotify, you don't have to worry about that. You see the pillows stacked. I was trying to block some of the light.
This isn't necessarily terrible. So it's just, like I think
Once they see the glow up, it's going to be phenomenal. But in the meantime, we deal with it. We're just here for the content.
we are
Hello.
here.
Didn't say my name.
All that
You
matters
know.
is as long as they can hear you.
Yeah, that's all that matters. And
Yeah, Mike, week 8.
and boy, do we have content to go through. My God, what a beginning to the NBA free agency. There's a lot to get into, so we're just gonna get into it because there's a lot to talk about, albeit it's very early on. A lot of this is very preliminary. However, landscape of the league is somewhat shifting, in my opinion, but we'll get into it.
Big time.
We'll kind of just go in order of teams because that's how we can keep all this information consolidated. So we will start out east with the Hawks, who, shall I say, one of the more impressive starts to free agency, in my opinion. We already know that they added Porzingis, but they add Nickeil Alexander-Walker on a 4-year deal, and they add Luke Kennard on a 1-year deal. So you get another wing defender and a great bench player. I would imagine he's probably going to come off the bench for them, probably 6th or 7th man. Kennard, another shooter to put around Trey, and Porzingis in that core they already have there. I'm remembering that they have Jalen Johnson, still got Dyson Daniels. So Atlanta seems to be moving in a really, really solid direction, but reaction to their free agent signings or free agent moves.
Hopefully Porzingis can stay on the floor because they'll definitely miss Clint. I thought maybe they pair the two, maybe like a Cat and Rudy Gobert type situation over in Atlanta, but I just I mean not like like what am I trying to say? Not specifically them, but I'm saying, like the two bigs. But I think if KP can't stay on the floor, then obviously that just leaves a big hole. And I think that they're vulnerable down low. They'll definitely need KP out there. But on paper, it looks good. I love the addition of Nickeil. I really do. I like what they're doing. Love it defensively. From a defensive standpoint, they look like one of the scariest teams.
I think you're right. I just think that this gives Okongwu like space to grow. I think this is what they've been waiting on. Like Clint was eating up that spot for a long time, and now it's like if KP is out, I think they can live and stretch a lot of teams. They added shooting depth. I mean, they're just kind of retooling and giving them better defenders around Trey, which is what you're going to have to do with that type of player that you're building around. If they are going to be, a defensive liability, he's just a small guard nature of it. But yeah, they retooled in a loose East. Everyone's hurt, so it's like why not add a couple more bodies? Jalen's going to get 1 year better, 1 more year seasoned. I think Dyson is going to play a even bigger role than he did last year with Hunter gone now too, where it's like everyone gets that room to. I think a lot of teams suffer from it where too much young depth, where it's hard for guys to get their role. But now it's like with fleshed out minutes and a little bit more time where they are the focal point, they might have something in like the next 2 years.
Yeah. I like the idea, to your point, Gail, that like they have the room for roles to be solidified, which means guys have that opportunity to grow in their role and not necessarily feel like they're competing. Like if you kind of know the minutes you're going to get, if you kind of know exactly what's expected of you, I think it's easier to be consistent. Not to say that in different situations, players don't find a way to make their mark. But this is a really good spot for Atlanta. I really enjoy it. We didn't talk Lonzo to Cleveland.
Okay.
But thoughts on that? In theory and on paper, I love it. How much does it move the needle? TBD. I think it kind of depends on where Lonzo truly is. So only time will tell. But in theory, having a actual point guard that allows Donovan Mitchell to play off ball and be more of the natural scorer that he is seems like it would be very beneficial for this Cavs team. And it's also somebody who can get all the other players involved so they don't all have to initiate their own offense anymore. I like it, even if it is just an experiment. I like it. Thoughts?
I don't hate it. Like you mentioned, I think if Darius is on the bench, resting, whatever, you're not too far off in terms of pure point guard, able to make the right reads, passing the ball. You're not too far off. You're not taking too much of a dip. So I do feel like Lonzo adds that extra kind of cushion or confidence for that second unit in Cleveland. I don't know if it moves the needle per se. Like, I don't think, oh, with Lonzo Ball, they're championship-esque. But I do feel like it allows them to be a lot more consistent throughout the game.
Agree with that.
I see the vision. They're going for Indiana Pacers 2.0 with a better defensive guard in Lonzo. Put him in that slot, Halliburton. You have a super Aaron Nesmith. Insert Donovan Mitchell. Super Nemhart and God.
Hi, Jerome.
Then you got a super Pascal Siakam and Evan Mobley. And then he has a less rangy Miles Turner, but rim protector, and Jared Allen. And then boom. If they run it like that and just blitz defense and run all day and do the same thing that they pretty much did last year, it's an open East, like I said. So in terms of moving the needle, we will never know until it's one of these like scraps of Eastern Conference teams in those like Final Four slots to play in the Eastern Conference Finals. But they could be one of those teams. I think it's like really four-way race between, I'll say at the end, but throw Orlando in there. But I digress. I think it's a good move. I mean, Okoro wasn't going to get solid minutes. I think Hunter was going to eat those up regardless, talking about space to grow. Chicago is a hell of a place. So Isaac will probably love that trade. So, yeah, I think it's kind of a win-win for both teams. Chicago gets a need at ball handling guard that could defend a little bit more, like give Donovan Mitchell and Garland that spare, like that rest that they need because they were battered going into that final stretch. And then Chicago gets, a young defensive scrappy player that can turn into a plus on the offensive end given the space. So win-win.
I don't think that I love the Indiana comparison, although I feel like I get what you are trying to get at. I just think it's just different tiers of players.
I called them a bootleg Indiana Pacers. That's what the Cavs are
you
going
said what did he say? A super?
But,
Yeah,
they had super versions, but they had super versions of each player.
Yeah, see, I don't feel like I agree with that. But the idea of what they can do as a team based off of their team construction, yes. Equal trade for both Lonzo and Okoro. I believe that. Cleveland also has Ty Jerome leaving, going to Memphis in free agency. Feel like that's a win-win for both sides. He'll definitely get clock in Memphis, so it is what it is there. But yeah. Nope, that's Cleveland. Also, Cleveland kept Sam Merrill on a 4-year deal. I believe it was relatively team friendly. Don't remember the number, but keeps a shooter there, somebody who was consistent for them last season as well. So I really like where Cleveland is at. If they're going to keep mostly everybody intact and make these additions, they should be right back there competing at the top of the East next season.
Yep.
Switching over to the West, Dallas. Not super splashy, but I think did a really good job filling out their roster going into next season. Obviously, they drafted Cooper, but extended Kyrie. I think seeing that extension was an investment in the vision that Nico had when he made the trade, to be honest. But then also, I think getting D'Lo on a 2-year deal with a player option is a solid option to see what he can do for the team until Kyrie gets back and if he can serve as some type of 6 man, I guess, or additional ball handler, additional scorer when Kyrie does return. So really like what the Mavs does. I like that they kept Gafford. Decent deal as well. They don't have to worry about paying too many others just yet. Not super in tune with where they are roster wise and contract wise, but really like what they did so far in free agency. What did y'all think?
I'm not gonna say he's making up for that trade, but definitely like the direction that they're heading in. I think this is a promising free agency. I mean, you still have PJ Washington, Derek Lively, Gafford, as you mentioned, AD. That's not terrible alongside D'Angelo Russell. So while I don't think the expectation is another deep playoff run, I do feel like this team can still make an appearance. And I think that they can be scary in the first round, especially if they're one of those bottom half teams.
Yeah.
I see. Get a chucker, and you got a bunch of dudes that can rebound. I don't blame him. And then that free touches to Coop, let him go do his thing. You do have a great front line. When I say chucker with a bunch of rebounders, I'm getting OKC of days past with Steven Adams and Enos Freedom Cantor. Less so, but a bit more run and gunny. Even though OKC is pretty run and gun. Honestly, I'm gonna call a spade. That might be kind of their template. If they go for that mold, I don't see them going far in the playoffs, like first round exit. But they got I don't know about Dallas. I can't really put my finger on like if they're not competitive in the West, not the West now. In my opinion, the core, the window is like 2 years, and like Kyrie's missing one of those, and AD's going to be a year older.
Kyrie will be back next season though.
Yeah. I know, but like you're already missing him with a year of AD eating up in that contract, and he had his healthiest years in his last like couple, but a big that has had injury problems in the past. It's really, I think, what you're setting Coop for in the future, and I think you have a lot of expirings, which is good. You give him like a good competitive start to his career because you don't want him to start off getting like the Charlotte Hornets, because I feel like that sets a culture and that sets you back. So I think as long as they are competitive in the first round, they look like they're going to give a good fight and they have like good mentors around Coop. I think there's a great start to his career. And then when they're expiring, they're gone, then, they have cap space to build around, what is going to be their franchise guy.
Yeah, I think Dallas is in an interesting position because obviously, Nico made it very clear that this was I would say it's 2 timelines, but honestly, maybe it's not. I mean, the more I think about this, I think they're still very much in win now. I think they have that much belief in Coop. I think that you are expecting Kyrie to return with enough time to potentially get his footing before the playoffs. Seeding in the West is not even worth talking about until the last week of the regular season, basically. But no matter really where they fall, it's going to always depend on matchup, which is what it really comes down to a lot of times. And I think a first round exit for them is just dependent on how their season goes. I do agree that they have the pieces in place for Cooper to have a smooth transition to the league, but I also don't think it's more for Cooper's future than it is for the next 2 years, barring any major
play. Like that whole timeline is like you got a year and a half max.
But I mean,
I think maybe they're banking on, like you said, maybe Kyrie comes back. And I don't know if this is being generous, maybe around the All-Star break. That's still a ton of time in the West to make a push.
it is. And because it's an ACL, and because we've seen those recoveries slowly get better and slowly get a little quicker with when he got injured, I think he has time to return in within the season with time. So as long as they can stay afloat, and I mean, we got to really consider if Cooper adjusts to the league either quicker than we expect or as quickly as we do expect, we may be talking about somebody that can provide 15 to 20 points a night. So we might be talking about a relatively complete team before Kyrie is even there. Like Kyrie just becomes kind of not the icing on the cake, because I ain't disrespecting Kyrie, obviously, but
Also, like,
But
man,
still,
but yeah,
Yeah.
but him returning, if they're able to stay afloat, and again, like Ashley was saying, in the West and really in the league in general, like seeding doesn't really matter until post All-Star break. You're not really seeing the pushes for seeding until then anyway. So really we get to kind of just see what it looks like to start the season off. And I mean, I guess they'll make moves accordingly, but Dallas, I think they put themselves in a really good position based on what Nico wanted to do with the trade. So for as much as we thought he did the dumbest thing in the world, which jury might still be out on that, he's done the best I think that they could possibly do to set the team up for success in the window that he was originally going for. So
yeah, as long as
yeah,
they're between 8 and 10, I feel like they're in a good spot for Kyrie's return.
agreed. Staying in the West, another team that was really impressive, Denver. Uh, I really like what Denver did. And when all the talk that we had last year about Jokic and the help that he didn't have, boy, did they go ahead and just go all in on retooling around best player in the league, you know? So yeah, thoughts on Denver's free agency so far.
Yeah, you bring back Bruce Brown and then you turn MPJ into a more consistent version of himself in Cam Johnson.
Love that.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's what they needed. That's exactly what they needed. Not to mention that I think they signed Tim Hardaway too.
Yeah.
So you get another one of those scrappy players. Denver looks good. Denver looks really good.
They also got Valanciunas via trade, so now they actually have a backup center. And actually, they traded Valanciunas, and they traded Dario Saric. So Saric already like wasn't playing that much, but
Yeah.
Valanciunas comes in as somebody who's a great backup big, in my opinion, has started in this league, obviously. So Denver, talk about a retool in a West that they were already competitive in with Jokic and Murray, no disrespect, but really love what they did. Really love what they did.
That's no notes. I don't think I gotta add much. That's just
That's
Bruce
ridiculous.
Brown, continuity guy, really good. Valanciunas, another huge big behind Jokic. Doesn't mess up their pace, has good passing skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got
Listen,
that
Right.
another
healthier, yeah. Dub.
Yeah, no, the big dubs. Back to the East. Detroit, really interesting. They re-signed Paul Reed on a 2-year deal. They get Karis LeVert on a 2-year deal, and they get Duncan Robinson on a 3-year deal via sign and trade. So in a era where you lose Tim Hardaway Jr., you lose Schroeder, who we'll get to, and you lose Beasley, bringing in LeVert and Duncan Robinson feels like solid replacements. I mean, copy and paste in a sense, so to say, give or take some things here or there. But
then losing Schroeder is kind of a wash because you expect Ivy to be back. So it's
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
Oh, I think
Good point.
Detroit positions themselves again in a really loose and open East. They're bringing back a similar team, but you expect that core to get better. You would imagine Cade is gonna get better and improve. You imagine Duren is gonna get better and improve. So you keep the same type of weapons around them. I mean, Detroit's gonna be in that mix. I
Baby
believe it.
Draymond is still there.
Yeah. So
Isaiah Stewart.
you say baby.
Little bad boy
Baby
return.
Draymond.
Bad boy era return. 2 lead guards be the helm.
Yeah.
Guy that's just gonna knock someone out.
Crying. No, I mean, I like yeah, no, I like
The shooters. I mean, you replace Beasley because he's gambling on himself.
Oh man.
And Duncan Robinson back. I mean, not back, but like as a shooter, like I think that's a win. I think that's a more consistent spot up than a Tim Hardaway. And then if he gets the opportunities that Malik Beasley got, let's see where he gets with his attempts. So, they have a defense around him that can hide him, a la early Miami. So,
Yep.
Yeah, no, I
not bad.
Like it a lot. Going back to the West, going to the Clippers. Really, really interesting what the Clippers did. Yes, they did add Brook on a 2-year, $18 million deal. Not bad for what they're probably going to use him for. He's going to be a backup big, which I think is great for him, and it's great for the Clippers playing behind Zubac. But Batum returns on a 2-year deal. Harden returns on a 2-year deal, and I hate to sound like a hater here, but 2 years, 81 mil just seems excessive for Harden right now. I know he had a good year last year, and as much as he's regressed, he's also still James Harden. And I guess they had the money to pay him if they weren't going to bring nobody else in, but that's just a 40 mil a year for him.
What's the range to you for James?
I guess
you're 60.
I guess I'll put it like that. I'll put it like this. I wouldn't have been as surprised if I saw 2 years for 60. And I know people may not look at that as that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. And I guess I also have to put in the context that I was surprised because I was like, well, there's no way they're going to bring anybody else in that's going to change the landscape of this team with giving him that money. So if that money is available for him because they're kind of staying put and they're just kind of giving him more tools to kind of play with and manipulate, I'm not mad at it. I was just shocked because I was like, if y'all was going to try to bring somebody else in to more so kind of be his running mate, so to say, giving him that bread seems excessive. But again, I'm not trying to hate on it. I'm not really mad at it. I guess I'm just curious how the Clippers feel like this improves them, if they even really are thinking in that way, or do they just feel like they need to make a few little small adjustments and run it back because they had a decent season last year, a better season than most expected. So yeah, thoughts on that for the Clippers?
I see where you're coming from, because it's like, okay, you're paying 40 million. This was the stat line last year, 18, 5, and 9. Not terrible. I think the extra 10 minutes, because I could see 32. I think the extra 10 just comes with the name, James Harden. And then, like you said, maybe they felt like, okay, decent roster intact. Let's see what we can do healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at it. I'm not completely mad at their roster. I mean,
I'm not compelled. I'm not compelled. That's
not
really
either.
it.
Why? I'm forgetting. I'm completely forgetting about Kawhi here. I don't know why that slipped my mind because I said running mate. So I'm like, but Kawhi's already been paid, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah,
okay. Actually, I don't take it all back, but this makes a little bit more sense now.
You still not taking back is the payment justified?
I wouldn't do it, but who am I? Right. But I agree.
Like, what other resource do you have? Who else is out there?
Yeah.
Like, if you were the Clippers, if you didn't pay him 40 million, who would you seek to add or what?
Yeah, there'd be no one. Like the best free agent was a center.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's why I say I think the money was just a little shocking because James Harden in 2025 getting 40 mil a year, even though it's for 2 years. Like, it just kind of was like, dang, he's still getting 40 mil a year. Like, of the players that are going to be getting upwards of 40 mil a year, like,
Yeah.
crazy. But again, I'm not hating and I'm not
they have to. They have to. And I think, as I say, I'm not compelled. I think I'm only saying that because I remember I wasn't compelled, and then I got caught in the hype of major media being like, "Oh, the Clippers are going to be great," and like they get beat in was it first round? No, first or second round.
I mean first round.
But it was a good match.
Also, the series went.
It was a good series.
Yeah,
good series. Like flip a coin there.
If it's
like
any other team but Denver, they more than likely, they come out the series. More than likely, the way they were
to
playing.
even push that 7, I think. I mean, I know there's no moral victories, but to even do that was more than what a lot of people expected.
Yeah. So I like the Brook pickup. Now that Zubac's that could stretch it. Like that pick and pop with Harden is going to be. I see the vision. I see the vision. And I'm not compelled, but I see the vision.
And I think Brook will do much better in a role where he's only expected to play 15, 20 minutes. Like he's not being asked to guard your starting unit as much. So I love this for him too.
Yeah, I'm happy with Brook. Super happy.
And he's not relied on to stretch the floor as much.
Exactly.
He can kind of just play freely, free of expectations, all of that.
Yeah. Just a cherry on top for them. So yeah, I love it. Okay. I didn't think we were gonna have to talk about them, but actually we do. Let's talk about Memphis. They re-signed Aldama on a 3-year deal. They re-signed Cam Spencer on a 2-year deal. Saw little pieces of him throughout the season. It seemed like a team-friendly deal, so nothing terrible. Before we get to this last one, they're not going to keep Cole Anthony. Actually, he's probably going to look to go elsewhere. They already have KCP. We talked about Ty Jerome. Jaren Jackson Jr. getting his 5-year extension, 240,
2-something.
How do we feel about
240?
This? How do we feel about this?
Ooh. Okay. I don't want this signing to be part of recency bias on what he did, 2 years ago. I like Jaren. I do feel like he's still young enough to be super impactful. You don't get a lot of bigs that can give you 20 plus a night, and he's one of those bigs that can do that. And then not only can he score, but on the defensive end, he's been defensive player of the year, right? So I don't hate them for putting their eggs in that basket. At least he's kind of like the one constant for Memphis basketball right now. So with that being said, you solidify that. I can't be mad at the Clippers giving James money and turn around and be mad at Memphis for giving a younger Jaren Jackson, more consistent Jaren Jackson, and able to impact both ends of the floor Jaren Jackson. So I'm not mad. And I actually like the fact that they locked him up.
Things are just a lot of money now.
Yeah,
that's true. This is also
it's a lot of money. But I mean, it's like that's the thing. I'm like it's giving Mike Conley, even though Jaren is not the highest paid person in the NBA. But I remember when people were talking, I was a defender. I'm like, Mike Conley deserves that. He's a great player. He deserves his contract. But what people were saying is like, you're giving that money to a person that isn't really putting you in a position to get a chip.
Mm.
And that's a lot of money for that. Or someone that isn't like, it's a piece to get you to a chip, but it's like,
That's interesting. Okay, so
it's not enough.
so although he's not the cornerstone to that, would you agree that he's still like the Robin to whoever you bring in to give you a chip?
Yes, and it's
Do
just
you not pay your Robin still? I
that's
mean,
what I'm
not
saying.
everything has
I
40
think we're in the contract year of we had to, because like the list of unrestricted free agents was not a lot. Like we have people clamoring for DeAndre Ayton at the moment,
And
Yeah.
if that's any point to where we're at right now,
But my
you know,
thing is, I feel like this. Sorry, Steve, real quick.
no, don't
You
ever.
can't you can't turn a Jaren Jackson Jr. into anything. You know, like you can't bring in a replacement for Jaren Jackson Jr. You
I
can't.
think my thing is I feel like we've seen who Jaren Jackson is, and it's like if I'm going to pay 265 mil, I want to pay 265 mil with like the possibility, the prospect that he could be, more like if Paolo is getting X amount of money, I think it's because we're paying Paolo for the belief that it could become X amount better, and I feel like is
So
the keg tap.
what more do you want Jaren to be though?
so that's my
I
question.
know,
Do you
but
think
it's
he's
like, what more can he? Like, it's not
home?
anything that he can do. Yeah, I mean, he could get a bag. He could get, like, there's things that he could do, but it's just like, what? It's like, it's the, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word that's going to finish this all, but I can't think of it right now. But it's like it's the small guard problem where it's like, Steph is Steph, but it's like there's only so many Stephs where it's like someone in his body frame, who he looks like, what he is, there's only so much they can do to impact the game. Like there's only like such a max. I feel like the more, that's why people draft, these
But is that not
because
true for every big or
like, huh?
is that not true for any big? Like
No,
it's
it's
only
super
so
big,
much.
like, I think his build, who he is as a player, I feel like he's maxed out those capabilities personally from what I've seen. Unless like his rebounding can like really start to excel and like he can like get a motor on that end. But I feel like if you're a player like that, you're a player like that. You have a nose for the ball, you have a nose for the ball. But if like you're a shot blocker and like a good shooter and a spacer, like that's what he is. And I feel like he could only get there by shooting 50% clip from three, or like really fine tuning his post game more. But it's like, is that even what Memphis needs now? Do they need someone to be a better post scorer? Like, like I don't know. I just for Memphis, still see the vision. You got Edie down low.
Yeah.
You have Jaren on the outside, bombing threes and blocking shots. Like it, it's what we're seeing a lot of teams doing, but 265 mil.
It's 240.
So
240, sorry.
It's 240. Let's not add 25 on there. But I will say one, I think to the point we made earlier, this is NBA money now. So it's not like the number itself is really not the thing. And I'm not surprised at the extension, but I kind of agree with you, Gail, because it's like, I don't think he has peaked yet, but he might have potentially peaked with Memphis. That was my thought prior to the extension. I feel like maybe he's maxed out what he could do in Memphis. Maybe he needs a fresh start. But something I'll say, a lot of people felt the same way about Mobley before he got paid and then did what he did last season. Granted, a lot of us feel like we need to see it again before we really, really believe it. But in terms of even the leap that Mobley made, if that is something that is in him, speaking about Jaren Jackson Jr., I think there's room for him to, whether it's increasing his bag or just becoming more efficient or whatever the case may be. And maybe there's an adjustment that comes with playing with Edie, right? Like I know Edie will miss the beginning of the season if I'm not mistaken, but I think instead of like him playing the 4, versus the 5 might present a bit of a difference to him. The same way Cat is better at the 4 than he is at
Yeah.
the 5, right? So we might see, like, after this extension, all things considered, we might see him kind of show the worth a little bit more. But given that this is NBA money now, given that, I mean, he, like Ashley said, he's been the one really main constant for Memphis since being there. So I think this extension is deserved. I can see people kind of having a little bit of a jump scare when they see the number and the name, because just kind of like, I hope that works out.
It's that old Miles Turner extension.
You said what?
This is that old Miles Turner extension. I remember he
I
caught
don't even
a
think
back
Miles
in
Turner.
Indiana.
He
It was
never got an extension like this.
at the time. It felt like that 150 mil was today's 250.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
You're
no, that's
right.
real. That's
You're right.
yeah. We'll go to Minnesota. We talked about Nickeil Alexander-Walker leaving. But Joe Ingles returns on a 1-year deal. Veteran presence in the locker room, I would imagine. That's his role. Julius Randle returns on a 3-year deal, 100 mil, somewhere in that range, if I'm not mistaken. And Nas Reed returns on a 5-year deal, 125. I knew he would get a bag, but good Lord. But yeah, thoughts on Minnesota essentially keeping their core and in most ways really running it back, essentially. I do think that Nickeil Alexander-Walker leaving is a big deal unless they end up bringing somebody in to kind of fill that slot. Now, granted, DiVincenzo is still there. Shannon is there. So, like, there are people to take those minutes. Does that translate to anything meaningful from the standpoint of how we've seen Nickeil impact winning? We don't know yet, but they do have players to take those minutes. But yeah, thoughts on their free agency so far?
Yeah, I'm not mad. I think it's a little unfortunate Nikhil had to go, but keeping Nas, keeping Julius, obviously, like you said, they still have Dante, they still have Jaden, so yeah, why not run it back? Why not? And then the West still feels open anyway. I mean, I know the juggernaut of the defending champs are still there, but if it's not this year, I don't know how much longer their window is open, but I do feel like the window is still open this year.
I think the beauty of Minnesota is that their window is Anthony Edwards. And since he has yet to probably be even close to his prime, I think they are an anomaly in terms of how long their window is considered to be. As of right now, you have this core at least locked in for the next year, 2 max. I don't know Gobert's contract. I don't know what they'll end up doing when that contract is up, but I think team chemistry and team camaraderie is still there. And we're talking about a team that has now been to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. So I'm not sure what the missing piece is that gets them over that hump. Maybe it's just always ended up being matchups at the end of the day, but I'm not mad at it. And I don't think they're necessarily feeling the pressure of a window closing either.
Looks like Gobert is signed through 2028, but there's a player option that year.
So at least 2 years.
At least 2.
These 2 that they locked in with everybody.
I think losing Nickeil sucks. I think that's bad. I think paying $100 million to Julius Randle.
He didn't earn that contract this year?
He did, but like that last, I can't get some of those plays out of my head. Like that last series, granted, like things are frustrating, but like he got stripped and walked back. Like I'm paying $100 million to someone that might quit on me. Like,
market. Who else?
I know I paid him because I had to free agency, like literally, like 125 million to Nas. He is definitely that when we get to our team, when we get to what we did, like these contracts just are. I'm like,
but we are also in a much different situation than a lot of other teams, though. So
I know, but like I'm wondering why the guys that took contracts from our team took contracts from our team because I'm seeing the money that's going around. I'm like, whoa, like there was the market's crazy.
Yeah, I have a theory on that, but
I do too. I do too. But like, whoa, like we got a lot of prove it deals. It feels like compared to everyone else because 125 million, 225 million between Julius Randle and Nas Reed is crazy. But we do have 225 million to one player, not named Giannis. So we'll talk about that. But yeah, I don't know. That's why when you say you're not mad about it, I am because like you're losing a rotational guy against, if you do go up against OKC, you're going to need everyone back. If you're going to run it back, like you have to run it back and some. And it's like you're depending on second year guys and third year guys to pick up the slack of guys that were just starting to get that traction of what, their role was on the team, their niche. And now it's like, okay, yes, Terrence Shannon is a quality player. Yes, Dillingham is solid, and Conley is going to be sliding off soon. Their rookie that they picked up from France is going to learn good ball from Rudy. Like they have, I would say this is more two timeliney if you're talking about like where they can go with Ant, where they have a team that could win now, and they have a solid young core behind it, like of guys that like they would consider keeping going forward more so than the last. But like I'm not compelled because it's like we saw what OKC did to him already, and it's like you're gonna do that minus guys that contributed a couple good games here and there. Like,
well, it's just
I don't know.
It's just one guy, and I think for me, you have a better chance. Like you have more people on your roster that can take Nikhil's minutes, and you probably have a better chance of finding a Nikhil replacement via trade or at the deadline or whatever than you would a Julius Randle placement. So I can understand, like, if you had to pay somebody, that's who you pay. And if you didn't have enough to pay Nikhil, then that's also just part of the business. I do agree with you that it sucks. And I think that he was a huge cog like in their machine, but you're not always able to keep everybody. So you have to sacrifice somebody. And I think this is just one of those sacrifices that we don't know. They may feel it later. They may not feel like it right now. They might feel it in those moments where you're playing the OKC or when you get in the playoffs. But we also don't know. We might see a leap from Shannon with those minutes and confidence to where he's ready to contribute in a similar way that Nikhil did. Obviously, he's younger and doesn't have as much experience. But, I mean, we've seen younger players have that impact. And maybe it's a different impact that still impacts winning. So I'm not disagreeing in terms of not being compelled per se, but I still think they live and die by Ant. So if Ant takes a leap that, is drastic enough, the rest of it may not matter as much because he's now at a certain level. So
I forgot about my guy.
your other glorious King, Gil.
May God shine upon him this summer, and I hope a lot of growth and a lot more patience in the ball handling and passing department.
Good Jesus. We'll stay in the West. New Orleans. The only addition that they had was Looney, but
Milwaukee
had to point it out. Reuniting with Poole. We love to see that. A lot of 4-on-4 activity in New Orleans. So shout out to them. We talked about them in a previous video. As long as they're healthy, will be really interesting to see what they look like. They live and die by Zion as well. So we'll see.
Yep.
Sneakily, I don't like this, but as a basketball fan, I do like this. The New York Knicks had two great signings in free agency. Clarkson and Yabusele. Love it. Love both signings for them. Essentially, the two things we said they needed to find their roster, they went in on relatively cheap deals at that. So once they figure out a coach, and if Mike Brown is going to be their coach, I like that.
Is that the name?
He has emerged as a strong candidate and had a second interview. I like that though.
Oh man, hopefully he doesn't have a bad stretch. The Mr. Potato Head memes are about to go crazy.
Yeah, they are.
Save my man Mike. He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
No, yeah, but great pickups for the Knicks. Once they get a coach, yeah, that's a retool. That's a running back.
That's a running
That
back.
is.
That's a running back.
That definitely is.
That's a true one.
And they haven't had any departures, so
Hey, I like it. They're positioning themselves really well. Not too much more to talk about OKC. They extended Jalen Williams. That's not J-Dub. That's the other Jalen Williams. 3-year extension. But Shea, boy, did he get paid
$1 million a game.
and boy, did he deserve it. What can we say? I don't think anybody can argue about anything that's being done on that front. But congrats to Shea on that money. Once again, doubling down with OKC. Yeah, I mean, they're going to run it back, and they're going to be formidable. Switching back to the East, Orlando, small. I like Tyus Jones going to them. Just in the idea of giving them a lead guard. Obviously, Suggs is there, but I think having a
yeah.
Oh, in terms of Tyus, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, you need one of those guys that's like, hey, let's get a good one.
Yeah, for sure. So and it's on a 1-year deal. So I think I'm trying to say this point to the end, but I know why a lot of 1-year deals or 2-year deals with player options are happening. So I think this is fine for them. Not too much on the Sixer front. Nothing really to talk about on the Phoenix front. Nope. Do we feel any type of way about Schroeder going to the Kings?
Nah, they're lame.
Somebody told me they like
it.
Somebody told me they like the deal for him for Schroeder, but they don't know what Sacramento is doing.
Yeah,
and I can agree with that sentiment.
Yeah,
we are going to start with. I mean, these two teams are probably tied for the busiest in the offseason, but we're going to start in Houston. Boy, oh boy, did they swing for the fence.
What are you doing?
I don't know if this is swinging for the fence or not, but nonetheless, boy, did they swing for the fence, and may I say, it's a home run. I genuinely think this is a home run. You re-sign Steven Adams, 3-year extension. You re-sign Aaron Holiday. You re-sign Jeff Green. You agreed to a 5-year extension with Jabari Smith Jr. I don't remember the number on that, but it was 122, something like that. Yeah, rookie extension, right?
5-year.
Yeah. So
yeah, it was 122.
Makes sense. I'm not terribly mad at it. You re-sign Jayshawn Tate. You re-sign or agree to an extension 2 years with Van Fleet. We already talked about that. You get Capella on a 3-year deal. We already talked about KD. And then you get Dorian Finney-Smith on a 3-year deal, maybe 4-year deal, whichever one it is. Decent money for him as well.
54?
3-year 54, 53, something like that. That sounds about right. Talk about a retool and talk about getting better when you were already extremely competitive solely from the defensive side of the ball, but you double down on your core. You bring in the pieces that you need. You now have a true backup center. No more Şengün having to play the 5 unless you want to go that lineup. So that's great. I think Clint is similar to Brook in terms of in backup minutes. I think he'll be much more serviceable at this point in his career. I think Finney-Smith is a great add, and I think they have a lot of different lineups they can throw at people that are equally terrorizing. But yeah, thoughts on Houston position themselves to ideally, hopefully, be strong contenders and make a run at a chip.
Smart moves. And I love that everybody who they brought in can buy into an Ime Udoka scheme, being defensive minded, smothering. Like I truly love what Houston did. And man, I feel like they're going to be one of the most fun teams to watch this season.
I was want to watch a practice. I bet that's gonna go crazy.
Yeah.
KD versus those. Oh man, like I feel like they're gonna make each other so much better during the season. I'm just so happy for those young guys, like Jabari learning from KD,
Yeah.
You think about
Amen learning from KD.
Yeah.
What?
I'm really excited for his upside.
Steven Adams and Clint Capella playing the rim and boards. Like they have. Oh my god, like Dorian 3-and-D, like that fills in the Dylan Brooks hole, and then, yeah,
they
no notes.
yeah, they have the pieces. And I know a lot of people are they I don't know if they feel like there are people that aren't as optimistic. You know, there are people that think that they still might be a first round exit or they still are going to fall short. And again, the West is so unpredictable. It's going to still boil down to matchups. But I think that they have all the pieces, and I truly think that the X factor for this team is going to be a man. I do. If he takes the leap that we all really want to see him take, I mean, he fortifies so much by improving, even if it's not super drastic. Him just taking the next step and becoming a two-way player immensely makes them better. Like to have KD and to have a Van Fleet, but if a men can consistently get you 15 or get to a point where he can even start creating his own shot, who has enough? I don't know if there are a lot of teams that have enough.
Luke Cornett to the Spurs. That's who has enough.
But
that's the one. That's the
All
other
right,
team.
buddy.
After that, right? Oh, Charlotte Hornets getting Pat Connaughton.
Anyway, but
No.
Well, man, talk about content. Good God, what a beginning to free agency. I'm sure there will be much more to talk about as these contracts kind of get solidified. I think the 6th is the date, sometime after the weekend, right? But yeah, a lot more in store as we
Oh my
keep.
God.
What?
$24 million deal for Trey Mann in Charlotte.
Yes.
I know we were all waiting for it.
Yeah. Glad
Wow.
that for him.
Wow. Fine.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot
We're all
more.
waiting for it.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot more to talk about. But yeah, until then, until next episode, we will catch y'all next time.
So let me